It's part 3 of our conversation with Rik Emmett. I'm John Beaudin from Rocky Street Music. Before we get to Rik, remember to subscribe to our channel, pick up a t-shirt, help support our channel, links in the description of this video, as well as links on how you can pick up all 11 of Rik Emmett's reissued solo albums. I've been listening to some of your interviews lately, and I know, and I've talked about this with a lot of artists, as you can imagine, you know, when you have a thing like this machine like Triumph in the back, and, you know, we're concentrating right now on the solo stuff, which you know I know, because I played you a lot as a solo artist. And I thought to myself, I think he's at a point now where he knows that when people talk to him, it's going to be Triumph this and Triumph that and Triumph, because it's such a big machine. It's a rock and roll machine. But you can't escape that. I mean, it's such a huge thing from your past. It's almost like not asking Paul McCartney Beatles questions.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with the fact that I could never do anything that would eclipse what the Triumph thing had been at the time that it was, because you know, in many respects, you can't go back. Like, I've been reading a lot of stuff about Bob Dylan, like, since he won the Nobel Prize. Mm-hmm. And there's a book called Why Bob Dylan Matters, and there's another one called like The Essential Interviews. And so, and I'd asked my kids for my birthday, you know, just go on Amazon and buy used copies of these books. But I'd like to do a whole bunch of Dylan research. And you know, in his life, he was always moving forward into new creative stuff. He was never going to be able to overshadow the fact that he'd been the voice of a generation, you know, the poet laureate of the protest movement. And he didn't want it. He never wanted that, being anointed that. You know, that old thing about if nominated, I won't run, and if elected, I won't serve. You know, like, Dylan was the guy that was kind of going like, I don't want any of that. And it turned him into the kind of an artist that he always did just keep moving forward, and he never cared what other people were saying or what the market was doing. So I feel a real kinship to that, because, I mean, again, yes, on a much lower level. Like, I'm not a Bob Dylan, I'm not a Paul McCartney, but I am an artist. And I am a kind of a guy that went, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to kind of keep doing what I wanted. I mean, my relationship with you, John, it goes back into that smooth jazz thing. But it was more like the smooth jazz thing picked me. I didn't pick it. I was doing these things. And then along comes Mary and her husband, and they're making this, you know, particular kind of a format, but they need CanCon for that. And so one thing's leading to another, and I go, yeah, okay, you know, and can I modify something just a little bit so that it will satisfy this thing, and it'll, you know, help fuel whatever it is that I'm doing. And I went, yeah, it can work, you know. But I mean, if you think about it, the Canadian artists that were in there on that whole smooth jazz thing, and I'm thinking of, in particular, like Alfie Zappacosta. And
I was just thinking, I was ready to ask you about Alfie, because Alfie is not smooth jazz at all, really.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just take what comes, you know, and I'll be happy for it. And in a sense, that the Triumph thing was kind of like that too. It was just, it was big. It had a lot of its own gravity, which, you know, gravity sucks things into, like, there's not much you can do when the machine is rolling. It has a lot of momentum, and of course, now here in my life, it's a time where people are going, oh, Triumph, maybe we should do a documentary about them. Oh yeah, and Walk of Fame, you know, we'll do all of these things. So you can't escape it, you know, and there's no denying it. But I think the danger is if you take it too seriously, because, you know, I'd much rather just kind of keep moving on. Now, I just want to make this point too, since I'm rambling and I've been doing interviews for 3 days, and so, you know, when you are, you know, perverse in nature as I am, and you decide, oh, I'm going to do jazz. You know, I'm going to actually, like my latest thing, there's 6 fingerstyle jazz guitar pieces. I taught at Humber College for 2 decades. And during that time, you know, it became completely evident and clear to me. Jazz is only ever about 1% of the marketplace. And of that 1%, a lot of people are going and buying the old Miles Davis kind of Blue album. Like, they're not necessarily going to be supporting new artists and young artists and you know, even new old artists. So I know what I'm getting into. I know I know the bucket I've already stepped in. But I kind of don't care. Jazz to me it's a pretty high calling from a avocation sort of point of view. It's a big challenge artistically, and I love that. So I'm not going to deny that. I'm going to go ahead and do it. And having said all that, as part of these COVID times, I wrote a book of poetry, and I'm getting, chasing a publisher to get that. And when you talk to publishers, they go, even in a really good year, we only ever sell about a couple of 100,000 of these, all across the country, all poets. I don't think any poet in this country has ever earned more than a $500 advance, And an unnamed publisher that I was just talking to recently, he's written 4 books of poetry, and he says to me, I don't think I've made $1,000 in royalties in my whole life from those books. I go, yeah, I don't care. And you're like, I'm not doing it for the money. It's not a business venture for me. It's this artistic creative one. And I don't need money. I'm fine. Thank you very much. So in a way, I'm past all that stuff, and it's just about sort of the creativity for me.
Rik Emmett has just reissued 11 of his solo albums. Details in the description of this video where you can pick them up. Also, buy a t-shirt, help support our channel, and subscribe to our channel. We'd appreciate that. Comment on our videos and share them on social media. I'm John Beaudin. More from Rik Emmett next week. This is Rocky Street Music.